It doesn't have to necessarily tell you word for word what's happening, okay? So let's talk about quotation marks for a minute. One thing that I want to discuss with you guys is where exactly we use quotation marks, okay? If I put quotation marks in a story, what am I telling the reader? If I put quotation marks in a story, what am I telling the reader? Colt?
What the exact words that the person said.
Yes, what the exact words a character is saying, right? Alright, so when quotation marks are used, they're used around someone's exact words, okay? Not he said, she said, not what they are wanting to say or anything like that. It's their exact words that are being brought out of their mouth at that exact time, okay? Our dialogue tags. What's an example of a dialogue tag? We've been doing this a little bit. What's an example of a dialogue tag? Liam?
Is it like where it says, like they said something or
Yeah.
they explained?
Yes. He said. She exclaimed. They yelled. Okay, that's a dialogue tag. Do you put quotation marks around the dialogue tag?
No.
No, you only put quotation marks around what?
The exact word.
Madeline? The exact words that are being spoken, okay? So let's talk about 4 different ways that we can write quotations, okay? The first one would be if you had a dialogue tag at the end of your sentence, okay? If you had it at the end of your sentence, you would have whatever you're saying, and then a comma, and then your dialogue tag, okay? So for example, I might say this. Okay, get your pencil out, said Miss Elizabeth. What would I do to this sentence to correct it? Am I saying something, first of all? I'm saying something, right? So let's think about that as we're correcting it. Valerie, tell me something that I'm going to do.
You're gonna need to put quotation marks.
Around what?
Get and out.
Very good. I'm going to put it before get, and I'm going to put it after out. We're also missing something else. What else are we missing? Blake?
You need to put an exclamation mark after out.
Yeah. Get your pencil out, said Miss Elizabeth. You could put an exclamation point here because I might be yelling that, right? If it's just a statement, what would I do? If it's just a statement, Cassidy? I'd put a comma where?
Inside the quotation mark.
Inside the quotation marks after what? Out, right? Our comma goes inside the quotation marks here. Get your pencil out, comma, close quotation marks, said Miss Elizabeth, right? Very good. Your comma is right here on this example right here. This one right here, we could ask a question, right? Your characters can ask questions, is that correct? Yeah. But if they ask a question and they're speaking a question, they're verbally asking a question, what do we put at the end of that? Is there a comma that comes at the end of that? What do we do, Tyler?
It's a question mark.
It's a question mark, right? If I'm asking a question, there has to be a question mark at the end of it, right? So no comma needed right here. This is just a question mark right here. And the same thing, Blake wanted to put an exclamation point right here, and that would have been correct because I might be excited about you getting your pencil out, or I might be yelling that you get your pencil out, right? So an exclamation point can go right there, but that also takes the place of a comma. So I'm going to circle that right there. Here's some examples. The lady over there is looking for her dog, comma, close quotation marks, Madison explained. Open quotation marks, where are my socks? That's a question, correct? So instead of a comma, I have to put a question mark, and then close quotation marks, asked Harrison. Wow, that is great news! Exclamation point. Close quotation marks, Reed explained. Your dialogue tag can also be at the beginning of your sentence, okay? Madison explained, comma. The lady over there is looking for her dog. Harrison asked, comma. Where are my socks? Reed explained, comma. Wow, that is great news, okay? You got your dialogue tag at the beginning, comma, open quotation quotation marks and then what is being said. Let's talk about when we have our dialogue tag in the middle of a sentence. We've been talking about this specific thing since August, okay? If there's something that comes in the middle of the sentence that interrupts the sentence, what is that called? Shout it out.
An interrupter.
An interrupter, right? Your dialogue tag, if you put it in the middle of a sentence, is an interrupter. And the rule for an interrupter is what? What do you have to come before the interrupter and after the interrupter? Adeline.
Commas.
A comma, right? Your comma comes before the interrupter and after the interrupter, right? Same thing with the dialogue tag, okay? You'll have two sets of quotation marks because you're interrupting what they're speaking, right? So let's look right here. Examples. The lady over there, comma, quotation marks right here. There's one set. Madison explained, comma, quotation marks, is looking for her dog. You've got two sets of quotation marks. There's a set. There's a set. And not only do we have two sets of quotation marks, we also have two what? Two commas. And what are those commas there for? Yeah, this is called your interrupter, right? So you have to put commas around that. Where, Harrison asked, are my socks? Wow, exclaimed Reed. That's great news. Okay? All of these are your interrupters, therefore you have to have commas on either side of those. If you put an interrupter in your sentence and you use your dialogue tag as your interrupter, you have to make sure that you have two sets of quotation marks in that sentence, okay? Does that make sense? I'll reset that for me. All right, let's talk about indirect quotes for just a second. This sometimes we have trouble with, and I had somebody ask me yesterday about this, and let's review over it for a second. So the example is Madison explains that the lady over there is looking for her dog. Why would I not need quotation marks in this sentence? Madison explained that the lady over there is looking for her dog. Why would I not need quotation marks in this? Liam?
Because they already said it, but you're just restating that they said it.
Yeah, she's just restating what's being said, right? In your story, you do not have to have quotation marks, quotation marks, quotation marks, quotation marks. You can still tell me what the characters are saying without using quotation marks. You just have to do it correctly, okay? Or see this word right here, that's going to help me understand what Madison is saying, okay? Madison explains that the lady over there is looking for her dog. She's not verbally saying that. She's just telling me in the story what Madison is saying, okay? Madison explained that the lady over there is looking for her dog. Thumbs up, thumbs down, you understand? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay, good deal. Next slide. Do you have a question, Madeline? What?
How Blake said you could put an exclamation mark, or would you change the word said?
Yes, that is something. If you wanted to say that was going to be an exclamation point, get your pencil out, exclamation point, said Miss Elizabeth. You might want to go back in there instead of saying said, like casually said, you might want to say yelled Miss Elizabeth, commanded Miss Elizabeth. Those are some good words that we can use in there instead of just said. So yeah, good job, Madeline. All right, some things to remember when we're using quotation marks. Never use a period in the quotation mark unless it's where in the sentence? Think about it. We are never using a period inside the quotation marks. We only use commas except for one thing. Except what, Colt?
If what they're saying is at the end and the dialogue tag's at the beginning.
Yes, if what they're saying comes at the end, the very tail end of your sentence, then you need to put a comma in there, okay? If it's at the beginning of the sentence, comma, you need to put a period at the end, sorry. If it's at the beginning of your sentence, comma. If you've got your interrupter, comma, okay? Only if what they're verbally saying happens to be at the end, very tail end of your sentence, that's when you plug in your period, okay? Because every sentence has to end with a what? A punctuation mark. Is a comma an appropriate thing to put at the end of a sentence? No. You can put periods, you can put question marks, you can put exclamation points, right? but not a comma. So the only time that you ever put a period inside quotation marks is if it comes at the very end of your sentence. Thumbs up, thumbs down, you understand? Okay, good job. We're gonna always refer to the verb in the dialogue tag to determine which punctuation mark to use. Y'all do really well at this. Remember, if you're asking questions, you put your question mark. If you're stating something, you're gonna put a comma or a period if it's at the end, right? If you're yelling something, if it says yelled Miss Elizabeth, then you would put exclamation point, right? If I said stand up right now, yelled Miss Elizabeth, what would be my punctuation mark?
An exclamation point.
An exclamation point, right? Sit down. What would be my punctuation mark?
Exclamation point.
Exclamation point, right? Very good. Commas always go inside or before the quotation marks. Y'all do very good with this. If a direct quote contains more than one sentence, you may put periods at the end of a declarative sentence. When I was looking over some of your stories yesterday, y'all all did fabulous, by the way, but one thing that I want to point out to you is just because your character says two separate sentences, if you put them together, you only need one set of quotation marks, okay? You don't have to have two sentences and each of the sentences have a quotation mark, okay? So let's talk about it. Let's look at an example. The water is hot, period. Wait until it cools before you take your bath, Mama told me. Mama is saying both of those sentences, right? Is she saying both of those sentences? Nod your head, yes or no? She is, right? So they can both go together inside one set of quotation marks, okay? Use a question mark and an exclamation mark as needed in dialogue rather than using a comma. Where is the best place in town to eat? The lady asked. Wow, that's great news, Mr. Malone exclaimed. You can use a question mark or an exclamation point when you need it, okay? You don't always have to have a comma in there. And then when you use dialogue in writing, begin a new paragraph and indent when you introduce a new character. So let's say that your whole story is about Brindley, okay? And then you get to paragraph 2 and you introduce Jesse. And Jesse says, hey Brindley, what are you doing after school today? His paragraph, what he's saying will be in the next paragraph, and you're gonna indent the next paragraph, okay? And then you'll put quotation marks around whatever he says. Quotation marks also go around the title of a poem or a short story. Example, Robert Frost wrote The Road Not Taken. The Road Not Taken is his title of the poem that he wrote, right? So you would put quotation marks around that. Same as a short story. The short story we're going to read today, if you put the title in your essay, you would put quotation marks around it so that the reader knows that it's the title of the essay. Of the short story. Colt. No, this is just a poem. Yeah, just quotation marks. Yeah. Yeah, some of them you will underline. And we'll get to that later on down the road. Alright, thumbs up, thumbs down, you understand? Okay. So let's talk about narrative writing for a second.